Hi there, it's Midsummer's Day and I'm in the orchard just having a look at some of the grafting I've done. I'm beginning with this mother tree of rare old Gloucestershire apple varieties that I was sent a while ago. This is brown French. It's a rind graft there and it's a double cleft, and you can see the kind of growth those have made. These were grafted 2-3 years ago, was it? Let's see, I mean that's this year's growth. That's last year's growth. So yeah, two years ago. There's another rind graft. You can see it's looking pretty good. What's that one? That's an old Gloucester apple called Bunch. Looking very good this year as well. These trees all got a lot of manure last year, a lot of farmyard manure. Oh, I better come back and maybe snip some of those out. Maybe just leave one or two so I can find out what Bunch is actually like. And there's another graft you can see. Double rind graft. As I've said many times before, whether I do a rind graft or a cleft graft or a saddle graft depends on the relative diameters of the wood that I'm grafting. There's another, I probably ought to just trim, there's another rind. I probably ought to just carefully trim some of that back to stop water collecting now and now. They're growing away strongly anyway. And what's that variety? That's long stalk. Anyway, so this year, I'm in fill barrel now. This is the section of our orchard, or one of the 3 orchards within the orchard, that's called fill barrel. This is gradually being redesigned over to a cider orchard, and there's a row here. I don't want to say row, and the rows were done pretty casually. We didn't measure them out accurately. Did quite higgledy-piggledy really, a bit like an authentic old backyard orchard. But this was a row of Bramley apples here, and this is a few years back, about 5-6 years back, again radically sawn off, and you can see there's remains there of a rind graft, and these Bramleys were grafted over to Yarlington Mill, I think 5 years ago. You know, it's a very effective action to take if it's the right thing for you, and Bramley's a very good one to do it on. Yeah, so that's growing away well. This I think that was a saddle graft there, and so these are doing well. These were Bramleys 5 years ago. They were sawn back radically and grafted over to Yarlington Mill, and we're going to work our crop of that this year. So this orchard section is being converted over. And here's some of the grafting I did this year, and according to the way I do things, I admit to failure. Here's a rind graft, didn't take. Oh gosh, too bad, dead. Here's a rind graft, it did take. Now why, you know, I mean, look, I used the same quality of wood. This one was brown French from that mother tree there. I used the same wood, the same knife, the same technique, same day. That one took. That one's taken. This one didn't take so well, I cut it back. You know, that's alive, but this one isn't. Looks as though it's cankered there. Maybe it's the quality of the wood was the issue. Anyway, okay, you don't weed them all. And there's another double rind, so that didn't succeed. So out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grafts were made, 8 grafts were made, 1, 2, 3, 4 have succeeded. So 50%, which is not great, but you know, there's 1, 2, 3, no, that's a 3 out of 7, a bit less than 50%. Okay, that's not great, but I've left a few branches. There's one growing up nicely. This is from the previous tree, so that's growing strongly. So next year most likely I will do a saddle graft onto that. Yeah, 3 branches on that, reasonably evenly balanced. What I might do is come back here, and I'm not going to do it today, maybe where there's a few shoots coming out, saw that clean through just there so that these will grow up clean and strong, and then I'll graft onto those next year. So there's about 40% success. So not great. I usually expect to do better than that. Here's another. This was long stalk. That's growing away nicely. That's died. and that's died. Gee, I'll tell you why I think the success rate is quite poor here, because this was an afterthought, and I used wood, instead of having cut wood when it was dormant in February and stored it, this was an afterthought after I'd done all the signed wood sending out, and I cut some wood that was actually live and fresh and grafted it, and these have done nowhere near as well as the average I get when I use wood that's been cut and stored, so there's probably a tail in that. Brown French, there we are, there's a nice, I'm not going to, I might remove the polythene from that quite soon. You see that's a nice saddle graft there, growing away beautifully. And there's another saddle, you can see that. Can I delicately fish a knife out of my pocket? And carefully get this off, one-handed. This is a question I often ask: when do you remove the ties? If in doubt, I'd leave it a little later than you think. You'd probably be okay. I've occasionally, what I thought was a good growth going on, I've occasionally removed the tie and it's fallen off. So it does take a little while to really get strong. I mean, you could sort of take it off and then rewind it if you're in doubt. Just rewind it to stop it biting in. I've seen it bite in before now, but that's not looking bad. Oh, I wish you could feel that. That's a nice young saddle graft. You see why I prefer this graft where it's possible. I will always use the saddle if I've got wood of equal diameter. It just seems to give you a nice big surface of live wood to live wood, and that's growing away nice. Okay, again here I've got only about half, barely half have succeeded. Over here, and again this was using fresh wood, not stored wood, 3 out of 3 have failed. Not the end of the world. When the end of the world comes, we won't be talking about it, will we? Yeah, I mean that doesn't look as though it was very well tied in, but yeah, anyway, 3 out of 3 have gone. So what I'll do, I'll let these grow away, and then later on I'll come back and I'll thin out these water shoots to a certain number. I'll let these grow, and I'll choose which ones I want and remove some of the others, and then I'll graft onto them next year. Okay, so that's the way it goes. I'll put this knife away, I'll poke myself in the eye with it. That's the sort of thing I would do. Okay, here's another that's not doing too bad. This is, this is another brown French. No, this is hangy down. This is a variety called hangy down. Double rind graft. That one's taken away very well indeed. Look how well that's grown. This is the sort of growth that you hope to see from a graft, but its companion has just died. Here's another one, not done too bad. Now of course you need to come over these and remove unwanted wood. That's growing all right. That's died, and that's died. But this one's okay. Again, nice saddle there that's growing away. Always prefer the saddle if you've got a nice shoot to put it onto. And that one's okay. You will often get blossoms on these. I'm just reaching in my pocket for a blade. Yeah, okay. Don't let these fruit, whatever you do. Look out for blossoms, and with something like this, very thin, pointy snips snick out. Unwanted growth. And of course, growth that's competing, take that out. Here's another. Yes, dabinet. This is dabinet. I must say, this looks awful, doesn't it? It does look very dreadful, but that's why I made a point of showing you some of the previous year's graftings, which are now looking great. Here's a dabinet. Again, it's patchy, that's looking good. I'm going to need to come back and very carefully snip out this blossom. That didn't take. That did. That took. Of these, you know, one's taken, one hasn't. This has taken. Very necessary to snick these out and do it early, but do it with great care. You don't want to cut any growing points off. This is a very specific tool, these fine snips I've got. I think these Wilkinson, I can't remember the make of these, but this is a good example of a tool. It's only got one use, you only want to use it for this. However, what I'm doing on fruit thinning, it's such an important job, and when you have to do it, there's so much, you have to do so much so quickly, that to have a properly designed and engineered tool that actually does the job correctly, it would just mean, that you can get the job done. You can press your secateurs into place for this. I've got my secateurs in my purse and in one of my other pockets. Yeah, and this is one of the reasons, by the way, I prefer the Falco number 8, because it has got a relatively thin tip, but you can see it's just a little bit more possible to use it to do this job than it is with a cruder secateurs, or not the roll cut ones, which I really don't like. I can just about do that, but I'm having to be a lot more careful. But with tools, as John Seymour wrote in his classic book on self-sufficiency, he said, buy the best tools you can afford and look after them. You can see that having the right tool, having really thin snips will do this, but I'll come back and finish that job later. Anyway, you can see some of the grafting's done quite well, but a lot of it failed. I had quite a lot of failures this year. I'm not sure why that is. I guess it must have been my fault, but I think when you can do, when you've got the right diameters of wood to do a saddle graft, you're more likely to succeed. My success rate with saddle graft is higher than my success rate for cleft graft. My success rate for a cleft graft is much higher than rind graft. Rind graft can work. Here's one that's working. Here's another that's working. Sometimes your best strategy when you've got this job to do grafting over like this is to saw back very hard and wait for a year. Let the thing send up a load of water shoots and then do saddle grafts onto the water shoots. Here, a couple of saddles. Oh, devil's piss aphid. It's called the rosy apple aphid. I call it the devil's piss aphid, or the Kenneth Clark aphid. Oh dear. Horrible. It causes all curling and destruction. Really bad aphid. There's no organic spray unless you consider, Deris or whatever. Sorry, that's another. Yeah. Now this is interesting. On this particular tree, which variety is this? This is fill barrel. I grafted over some fill barrel. That's what we call this orchard by name. Okay, here's the saddle. It's taken well, apart from the aphid damage. Two saddles done all right. Here's a double cleft, and that's done all right. And here's the rind, which has died. And here's another rind graft, which has succeeded. And here's another one that's done okay. So that's good. That should grow away nicely. Anyway, I always like to show what grafting I have done this year, if only to demonstrate that I am not a purveyor of BS, but that the techniques which I demonstrate, none of which I invented, they're all in the books, and they're all in very old books, that these techniques do generally work. They don't always work. This year I'm disappointed. I've had a lot of failures, particularly with the rind graft, and I'm not quite sure what that was, although some of it was because of using fresh wood instead of dried out wood. I sort of think that if you cut the wood when it's deeply dormant, it's not moving at all, it's asleep, and also it's slightly dehydrated, so when you splice something that is slightly dehydrated onto something that is full of water, then the water will flow into the dehydrated thing. At least that's the water and the growth enzymes and the plant food. At least that's my way of looking at it. But I will continue to give the same advice. Cut your wood in deep winter dormancy, preferably February, store it moist and cool, and then graft when the leaves are beginning to come in April. And I just finished with this tree. This is Major. Yeah, this is a cider variety. This is an old Kids Orange Red. I've got too many Kids Orange Reds, and I'm converting this orchard over to be completely cider varieties. Major, an old West Country cider apple. So there's a rind onto a thinner bit of wood. There's a double cleft. There's another double cleft, and there's another double cleft. I could have done a double cleft there, and 4 out of 4 are doing great. I had a nurse branch there. I often will leave a nurse branch, but I cut it off as it was clearly no longer necessary. This is what success looks like. You know, if you've got a really good growth, this is what success looks like. That's what I grafted in. You can see between my little finger there and my index finger, 6 inch is a 6 inch scion, and it's got 4 or 5 good strong growths from it. That's growing away well. If that grows away well, then this year, next year it'll grow away well. Any fruit I'll snip off. 2018 I might be able to carry a little bit of cider apples. So anyway, so that's just saying goodbye. Just 2 days until the date when my country goes through this EU referendum. People who know me probably can guess which way I'm going to vote. I'll give you a clue. I'm not a big fan of supranational New World Order government, and I think my country is quite seriously overcrowded. So that might just give you a clue which way I was supposing to vote. But you know, God have mercy, whichever way it goes, there is a lot of nastiness that has come out on both sides, which is going to need a lot of healing. So you know, if you can, pray about that, and if you can, speak kindly. You know, the least said, soon mended. There's been some nasty stuff going on. Anyway, so just signing off from the orchard, wishing everybody kindest regards.